Back again, this time to talk about my vampire books. I have 32 vampire books, if I count the two vampire book series I have as one book. And that's a lot of vampire books. So I decided I would like to set aside a couple of months to just read as many of my vampire books as I can get through. So I've chosen April and May for that. And I'm calling April Vampril and May Maypire. Now this is not an event. This is not some event with hosts and all that kind of a thing. It's just something I'm doing on my own. And when I told Shawn Standfast that I was doing that, he decided he wanted to join me for it. So he's doing it as well. And he's actually already put up a video where he talks about the books he's reading for his vampire crawl. So I thought I'd come in here and I'd tell you about all of the vampire books that I have and which ones I'm going to read for sure. So what I'm going to read for sure, I've actually already started. So the one that I've already read is a novella called The Vampire. I actually didn't type out the authors on this, sorry, but the cover will be right here so you can see that. I've already read it. It was fantastic. I absolutely loved it. It was 5 stars. The other one that I've already read was Claremont. Again, I can't remember the author, but the Kindle cover image will be here. It was also fabulous. It was 4 stars. That's about a female vampire. So then what I'm currently reading is A Castle in Transylvania by Jules Verne, which sounds like it's going to be about a vampire, especially since it's Transylvania. At the bottom it says, Back from the Dead, the original zombie story, and the synopsis makes it sound like it's a vampire. But Shawn read this overnight. He read it all in one day, and he told me it's actually not about a vampire. So now my desire to read this has kind of gone down a little bit. However, I'm going to read it anyways because it is Jules Verne. I'm already 10 pages in. I might as well finish it. It's not that long. Then let's see, what else do I got? Then I'll be reading Caramilla. No, not Caramilla. Carmilla by a French author, whose name I can never pronounce, but there it is. So Carmilla, again, this is a female vampire. Oh, I forgot to mention that these stories are all pre-Dracula. They were all published before Dracula was published. So this one will be next after I finish A Castle in Transylvania. Then the next one I'm going to be reading is Dracula by Bram Stoker, of course, in my nice Word Cloud Classics edition, which I absolutely love these. They have the vinyl covers, so they're flexible, but they're durable, way more durable than a paperback. They're actually even more durable than a hardback because when you drop them, they don't take all the damage like a hardback does. So, and I'm super clumsy, so I do drop my books on a regular basis. So I love these. Let's see. Oh, I almost forgot to say, I have actually already read Dracula. I read this when I was in my early 20s, somewhere between the age of 20 and 22 in there. And I read it on a mass market paperback edition that I picked up at Walmart for 50 cents. Walmart had this slew of mass market paperbacks. They were mostly classics, and you could get 2 for $1. It was fabulous. I picked up a bunch back then. So anyways, I don't remember a lot about it. I do remember several things, but I just can't remember it as a cohesive story. So I'm really anxious to see what I think of it as an adult. Then I'll be reading Dracul by Dacre Stoker, which is Bram Stoker's however many greats nephew. It is a prequel to Dracula, and he wrote this based on Bram Stoker's actual notes. So this will be a very interesting read. I'm really anxious to get into this one. Then I will be reading Something in the Blood, The Untold Story of Bram Stoker, the Man Who Wrote Dracula by David J. Skal. This is a nice 600-some page biography, and that's excluding the bibliography and the index. So, but including the notes, because I count the notes because I do read all the notes. So I'm really, really excited to read this. I can't wait to get through all those books so I can read this one, actually. I was tempted to read it first, but I know it's going to have a lot of Dracula references in it, and since it's been so long since I've read it, I figure I would miss the Dracula references. So I'm really excited to get into this one. The next one I'll be reading is The Vampire Lestat by Anne Rice. The reason I'm including this is because I've already started this. I think in October, I believe it was October, It might have been December, I'm not actually sure. Steve Donahue started reading this with another booktuber that I can't remember and I'm not familiar with. And I read all the Anne Rice books through my 20s. I think I was 30 years old or maybe 31 the last time I read Anne Rice. So I read all the Vampire Chronicles, I think up to Blood and Gold is where I got. But I would like to reread those. And when he was doing that read along, I thought, well, I'm going to read that too. But then I got distracted by some other read and then I never got back to it. So I'm going to finish this for sure. And then I am going to continue after Vampril and Maypire. I'm going to go ahead and continue on with the Vampire Chronicles and reread all of them, but just slowly. Then let's see. Oh, then The Night Crossing. I'll have the cover image here. The Night Crossing by Jason Marcello, I think is the author. I've actually already read this. I got a little bit of a jump start. I started in the last few days of March. So this one I did on audiobook actually. And I absolutely loved it. It was a novel that's about Bram Stoker and all of this adventure that he had with other characters that were the inspiration, the fictional inspiration for his Dracula novel. All fiction, like I said. And there are a lot of historical figures that pop into it. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle is in it. During the period of time in which the book is set, Oscar Wilde is in prison. But his mother makes an appearance in the book. And like, who else is in that? This journalist whose name I can never remember. It's like Stead, like W.T. Stead, I believe is his name. He was invented a new kind of journalism, or was the first person to do a certain kind of journalism. I can't remember all the details about him, but he shows up in it. Oh gosh, let's see who else. I can't even remember, but there were a lot of historical figures that show up in that book, and I just really enjoyed it. It was so good, all the way until the last 100 pages. It was like a 450 page book or so. The last 100 pages could have just been left out completely and it would have been fine. But up until then, it was absolutely fantastic. Let's see. Then In Mind of the Vampire, which I have on Kindle. I also have the audio. Oh, wait, no, I don't have the audiobook of this. Sorry, I'm lying. I have the Kindle edition of this, but I plan to pick up the audiobook of it. And I'll do this one as the next audiobook. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Just pretend I didn't say that. So In Mind of the Vampire, I will be picking up the audiobook of that. And then The Traveling Vampire Show. Now that's the one I'm listening to on audiobook now. And then when I'm done with this one, then I'll do In the Mind of the Vampire on audiobook. So those are all of my absolutely for sure. I'm definitely going to read those books. These are my for sure vampire reads for April and May. So if I read through all those and I still have time, the next one that I'll pick up is Salem's Lot, which I have in this little bind up. This is a bind up of The Shining, Carrie, and Salem's Lot. And I've never read Salem's Lot, but it's one of Scott Danielson's favorite books, and several other booktubers that I know think Salem's Lot is wonderful. So I definitely want to read this, and I don't know anything about it, so nobody spoil anything for me. I know it's about vampires, and that's all I know about it. I didn't see the movie. I have never read the book, so I have absolutely no idea. I'm going in blind other than the fact that it's vampires. So yeah, so I'm excited to see what all of the hullabaloo is about that one. Then the next one I will pick up is I, Vampire by Michael Romke. This actually came out a long time ago, and I remember being in my early 20s and wanting to read this book. And then I never did get to it, but it's a vampire's diary, essentially. Like the tagline says, the confessions of a vampire, his life, his loves, his strangest desires. So I think this one sounds really, really good, and I hope that I get to this one because I would really like to read this one. And then I have a short story called Judge D and the Limits of the Law. And this Judge D, this is like a series of little short stories that I have been seeing pop up on my Kindle suggestions. And I did pick this one up. It sounds really good, and the cover art is fabulous, just absolutely fabulous. This cover art really sold me on it. So that's the next one I'll read. And then another one that I'll try. I don't know if I will actually read it if I get to it, called The Deathless Girls by Karen Millward Hargrave. This is about the three brides of Dracula. And it's classified as YA. However, I really wanted to give it a try. It sounded intriguing. I would love to read a good story about the brides of Dracula. So, I mean, they get pretty much ignored. They just get cast as side characters that are evil without any kind of reason, but they don't have any personalities of their own. So I would really like to read a story that did cast them with their own story. So this could be it. I don't know, but I don't like YA as a general rule. So we'll see. If I get to this one, I want to try it, and I may DNF it. I don't know. Then I'll put the cover art here on the side here. Then I have a quartet. I've already read 2 of these. This is called the Princess Dracula series, and I read the first 2 books in it 3 or 4 years ago and loved it. Oh my gosh, it's so good. It's about a girl who she starts out in a boarding school, and her father is Count Dracula, Count Vlad Dracula. And he picks her up out of the school to take her home. And she thinks it's because he has found her a husband. But what it is he's actually taking her out to use her as a sacrifice because he wants to gain supernatural powers that this demon, is rumored to, as legendarily gives people. So he takes her into this cave with his, group of soldiers or whatever, and the demon appears, and the demon kills her father and all of the soldiers, and is about to kill her, but changes its mind and offers her the powers instead, and says, you know what, I'm going to unleash you as a plague on humanity. And he gives her the powers so that she can then be a plague on humanity. And so she is actually the vampire. She actually becomes the vampire at this point. Oh my goodness, it was so good. I loved the lore. The vampire lore in this book is she becomes like whatever it is that she's consuming. So at first, she accidentally kills some people, and she doesn't mean to, and she's extremely upset about it. But she has to survive. She has this unquenching desire for blood, And so after she wrestles with this for a minute, she decides she's not drinking the blood of humans anymore. She's only going to drink the blood of animals. The problem is the more animals that she drinks, the more animal-like she herself becomes. Her body even takes on the shape and form of a wild animal, and she behaves like a wild animal. And so God only knows how long she spends as a wild animal, long enough to become a legend amongst the people as being this fearsome creature who haunts this forest. And she gets captured by Madame Bathory. And the Countess Bathory imprisons her and starts giving her human blood so that she becomes human again. And so that's all I can tell you about that series without spoiling it. But it was fantastic. At least the first 2 books are. So I would really like to reread the first 2 books and then continue on and read the last 2. But I don't know if I'll get here or not. We'll have to see. Then the next one on the line is Anno Dracula by Kim Newman. And I actually really like this copy that I picked up. It's got painted edges. It's a signed edition. I don't actually care about the signed edition, but I really like the pretty, end papers, the pretty cover, the painted edges and all that. I like how pretty it is. So, and this is a comedy, as I understand. So, and I've always been curious about it. So I thought that I would read that one if I get here. The next one is Night Face by Lydia somebody. I can't remember the last name, Peaver or something like that. And I actually cannot recall anything about this other than it being a vampire story and that it's supposed to be more of the a slashery or gory type of vampire story. Then I have The Book of Dracula, which is a lot of short stories, vampire short stories. I can thank Steve Donahue for this one. He talked about this on his channel a while back, and I decided I had to have it, so I found a used copy on eBay. This is another one that's Steve Donahue's fault. I think he talked about it in the same video or very soon after. It's the Holmes Dracula File, which is apparently a story about Sherlock Holmes versus Dracula. And the cover, look at this fantastic cover. Could you die? Because I could just die. It's fabulous. So that one. Then I have a trilogy. Oh my gosh. I don't know what the trilogy's called. I just keep calling it the And I Darken trilogy, but it was written by Kiersten White, who wrote a book that is absolutely wonderful called The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein. It's a pastiche novel from the perspective of Elizabeth Frankenstein. Yeah, Elizabeth Frankenstein. Sorry, got confused for a minute. And it was wonderful, except for I hated the ending. Like the last 40 pages of that book was terrible. But the rest of it was like 5-star. But anyway, she wrote this trilogy that is Dracula only if Dracula had been female. So I'm kind of hoping it's along a similar vein as Princess Dracula, but it will probably be radically different. But anyways, the premise of having a female Dracula does intrigue me. So the first one is called And I Darken. The next one is called Now I Rise. And then the third one is called Bright We Burn. Then the next one on the list, of course, these we're getting into books that I'm most definitely not going to get into, but I'm going to put them on here anyways because they are vampire books that I have. So then the next one is An Unattractive Vampire, Fat Vampire, Joe Vampire, and those three are supposed to be humorous vampire novels, and I thought they looked interesting. The next three are more along the lines of erotica or romance vampire novels. The first one is Crave. The next one is Beauty and the Vampire. I fully expect this one to be a, spin on the Beauty and the Beast story. And then the next one is Bloodmate by my favorite erotica novel, Kitty Thomas. And then I have two more that, one called Sunshine. I can't remember what this is about other than humans and vampires sort of share equal amounts of the population and are living separately because, of course, vampires prey on humans. So the humans live behind like some gated town or whatever. I can't remember all the details, but it had something to do with the separation with, vampirism running rampant. So that, and then also this one called Vampire Girl, which is YA. I have no idea why I have this. I have no idea. I didn't even read the synopsis. I didn't bother. The cover's very YA. It's clearly YA. So I doubt that I will ever read this one, but I do have it, and maybe I'll have a mood someday, so I'm going to leave it. So anyways, yeah, so that is all of the vampire books that I own as far as I could find and remember. So yeah, I do have all of my vampire books on a single shelf on my Goodreads profile. It's there. I will link my Goodreads shelf in the description here, and I'll also link Shawn's video, and I'll call that the end.